Welcome back to Songsmith, everybody. Today I'm going to be covering your questions that you guys have been submitting for this Q&A episode. It is going to be a really fun one. I'm really excited to talk about these different things you guys have given to me. So, as always, let's dive right into the episode.
Hello everyone, and welcome to Songsmith. I'm your host, Keaton Williamson, and my goal is to help equip you to be the best musician you can be. The purpose of this show is to give you the knowledge it takes to be a successful songwriter, producer, and indie artist, while also honoring God in whatever music you create. We all want to be successful in this crowded space, so join me as we explore what it takes to be a songsmith.
Before we actually dive in, I want to say one thing. We are at 10 episodes of the show! How did that happen already? Like, that's actually crazy. It is so cool and exciting that Songsmith is now at 10 episodes. Cue the confetti horns, the noises. Now! Was that cool? Was that stupid? Let me know, and maybe I will or won't do that in the next episode, or stuff like that. You know, fun things. So yeah, 10 episodes. That is crazy. 10 episodes plus 2 bonus episodes. The one with Lucas Alvarez O'Connell, my cousin. It's 2 bonus episodes, but it's 2 for the same person. So yeah, a lot of content. That's 13, 14? 13 releases, I think. So pretty crazy. Pretty darn crazy. But anyway, you guys tuned in to listen to a Q&A. Not me get excited about 10 episodes, but I hope you guys are excited about that because this is a pretty cool milestone. 10 episodes into the show. Insane. Obviously, over the last couple weeks, you guys have been submitting your questions for this Q&A. A lot of them have come through Instagram. In fact, I think almost all of them have. With a Q&A feature I put in my stories, and I had you guys comment some. I don't know if anybody actually commented on Reels for them, but you know, people put some different stuff through, and I'm really excited to cover what you guys have shared. There's I think 5 different people with a couple different questions, and they are some good ones. There's a couple interesting ones, but yeah, a lot of really, really good things to talk about. We're going to kick this episode off strong with the one and only voice message that was submitted for this episode. If you guys want to submit voice messages in the future, whether it's for episodes you want me to cover or whatnot, there is a link below every episode in the Spotify description, but I'll start adding that normally in the description of all episodes. So it'll send you to my Spotify for Podcasters page, and you can submit a voice message that could be included in the show, or could just tell me what you want me to cover in future episodes. With that out of the way, here is the first question from my friend, Sam Shavy.
Hi, Keaton. My question for you is, what's the reason that you started music and decided that you wanted to pursue it further?
Okay, Sam, the way you said, hi, Keaton, is a little bit disturbing, but looking past that, I'll answer your question, because it's honestly kind of an interesting one. A lot of these are, but this one's really interesting. So, I've always loved music. I've grown up, as I've kind of talked about, some in the last episode and some in previous episodes, in mainstream Christian music. I've listened to that for a long time. And then I've also listened to a lot of country. So I always have kind of music going around me. I've always enjoyed music. My playlists on streaming platforms like Spotify and Amazon Music, always massive, like 48 hours long. They are not short. So I've always really liked tons and tons of different music. And I've had some different influences, like I said, from country and mainstream Christian. But when I really decided, hey, I want to do something with music, that is So I started when I was younger. Let me back up. When I was younger, at I don't actually know what age I was, probably 8 or around that age, when I lived in Bourbonnais, Illinois. We went to a church called Gathering Point, and while we were there, there's this one song that the kids' church would do called This Little Light. I think it's called This Little Light. Not This Little Light of Mine, but it's this one guy who made this song and put it on YouTube called This Little Light. I think that's what it's called. I'll link it in the description, show notes, whatever, underneath this episode. Highly recommend you go check it out. It's a little bit like of a, VBS vibe, but it's so fun. And honestly, a lot of you might have heard it in different ways. I've talked to different friends that I know here and stuff that, no connection to our old church. And they're like, oh yeah, I heard that song. We did it for such and such. And I'm like, yes. I don't know why it's not on any streaming platforms, but I'm rambling now. Let me get back to the main point. So I vividly remember that song, and I was like, I want to do something like that. I want to make music that cool. So, little me got on, I don't even know whose computer, one of our family computers, and was like, I'm going to write a song and make slides in PowerPoint for it. I don't even know how I understood PowerPoint that well yet. I was just like, click, type words, click. And then I was like, I'm going to make this whole song and I'm going to give it to our church and we're going to do it for children's church and it's going to be awesome. And I don't even remember how far I got with it. I don't even know what it was about. It was just some like, I'm going to make a song. So I started typing out a bunch of words for Christian sounding things that I feel like we sang it about in children's church. I talked about it to like one of the neighbor or two of the neighbors we had, and I was like, I'm making a song and I'm gonna have us do it for church and all that. So that's kind of like the first time I was ever like, let's write a song. But it was really just kind of a one-off fantasy because after that I never did anything else with it until obviously more recently. When I really started wanting to do music was a couple, I think 2.5, 3 years ago maybe. My cousin Connor Stanley goes to Grace College. And at that same college is Xander Salos, a musician who is an independent musician I really enjoy listening to. And my cousin Connor was like, hey, Keaton, you should check this guy out. I really like him, and I think you might enjoy him. So Connor showed me a couple of his songs, and then I listened to some more on my own. I'm like, this guy is really cool. And then like I started listening to other people he worked with, like Matthew Parker, Sam Bowman, Jordan Blaine was Jay Steph at the time. All these different independent musicians. And especially first was Xander, and then I kind of got into listening to Sam a lot more. And I was like, I could actually do this. These guys are college students and people at home. They're young, or even just like Matthew Parker, who's married. He does this out of his house. And honestly, I didn't realize how many people, even in the mainstream industry, are doing these in like home studio setups. And I was like, I could actually do this. This isn't just some far off, unachievable thing. I could actually make my own music. So that's when I really started trying to write some songs. My first song, I think, was called The Story Ain't Over Yet. I think that's what it's called. It's never going to see the light of day. Just keep dreaming. You're not going to see it. It wasn't that good. I thought it was amazing at the time, but no. Just no. So, I mean, it was fine for a first song, but it's not that good of a song. And then slowly I just started writing more, a lot of more bad stuff. And then I did start to get a little bit better each time. I got better at different things. I had different elements starting to get down, like bridge, verse, chorus, etc. And it just continued growing. And obviously it's still growing. I'm not an amazing songwriter yet, but I've been putting in more work. And I feel like what I'm writing now is actually decent. So that's kind of how I got into it. I still want to do more with it. I'll talk about it a little bit later on in the episode because another question covers it. But I want to do more with it, whether that's music ministry at a church or if it's, I want to release music in the future because, I mean, I have a lot of things I'd like to say and just a lot of things I like to process through songs, and I like hearing things processed, like emotions and whatnot, through music. So turning those things into actual songs and releasing them and making a way for other people to relate to it and, just kind of, build a community. I really want to build a community of songwriters. So kind of, again, with what the purpose of the show is, to get more songwriters around me and we can all work to support each other as we're creating these things. That's how I got started. A little bit of a long explanation, but yeah, that's how I got started into music and why I want to do it. One of the other reasons I want to do it is so that I can write stuff that's a little bit different than the norm Christian music. There's this kind of, not saying, where people are just like, Christian music's getting kind of boring. In a lot of ways, it is. That's why I covered the CCM problem in the last episode. But there's a lot of independent musicians that are doing Christian music in a different and fresh way. And that's what I want to do. I want to talk about Christian things in a way that's interesting and fun and exciting and sometimes challenging. That is one of my mission statements in my music, that I want to write stuff that is challenging, not just, you're easily fed it and that's all you do. You just consume it and then you move on with your life. That's the reason I want to create music and why I wanted to get started. Next question. So my friend Ben submitted a couple different questions and kind of a few statements that I'm going to talk about. And the first one here is, why did you call the podcast Songsmith? Now, I had been playing with some different ideas. I didn't have that many ideas for the show's name, honestly. It was just like, song, music, something. And then I was like, Songsmith. I was like, ooh, that sounds kind of cool. And then I kept thinking of different names. I'm like, I don't want to settle on the first thing I come up with. And then I kept going and I was like, you know what? Songsmith is actually pretty cool. I can't come up with anything better. The reasoning behind the name is song obviously being like music, songs, that's pretty self-explanatory. And Smith. I wanted it to have like a cool, almost medieval or mechanical vibe. Not mechanical, but fantasy. It was like Smith sounds really cool. Not just like song creator or songwriter, but songsmith. You're forging these songs. That's kind of the idea I had behind it. And I will be honest, and I've told my friend Ben this before, I took a lot of inspiration, especially in the design of the logo and whatnot, from a YouTube channel called Tail Foundry, which in a lot of ways is a very similar type of YouTube channel to what my podcast is. Tail Foundry breaks down different stories or different types of storytelling and different aspects or genres of storytelling. And it's all about stories. It's all about tales, Tail Foundry. So, and I kind of do the same thing, but just with songs. So, there's a lot of inspiration I drew from that channel. I really, really like it. And it's a like fully animated channel, or fully animated to the fact that like they have different caricatures and almost like a glorified PowerPoint, but better. It's hard to explain. You'd understand if you go watch the channel, and I highly recommend. So I'll make sure to put that in the show notes description of this episode if you want to go look at Tail Foundry. Question number 3. This one's actually kind of a statement, and here it is, also from Ben. You should try and do interviews with music artists. That is the goal, my friend. That is the goal. So here's a little short fun story. I wanted to do interviews with some music artists. One of the guys' names were Levi Lamberjack. He was a local musician around Mishawaka and a pretty cool guy. And I was going to really talk about the aspect of doing music locally because he'd do a lot of shows in the Mishawaka area, Michiana area. And I was like, yeah, he'd be a perfect guy. He was even going to be the one I wanted to have on episode 3, so it'd be on launch day. I reached out to him and he was like, sorry, man, I'm kind of busy right now, but hopefully in the future we can reconnect and I'd love to do that. So I was like, okay, I'll talk to him in a couple of months and maybe we can get that hammered out. A couple months go by and then I recontact him and he's like, oh yeah, I'm moving to Germany now. So I was like, oh, okay, best of luck to you. Have a good time in Germany. And obviously nothing's really happened since. I was planning on doing the interview remotely, but obviously moving to another country takes up a lot of your time. So that's kind of cool though. I've got to see on Instagram some of the things he's been doing over there and just the transition. But yeah, that's why I couldn't interview him. Then I reached out to Adam's Voice. They're a traveling Christian band, somewhat gospel, somewhat like mainly gospel music. And they travel from church to church doing shows with their family. And there's 6 of them, mom, dad, 2 sons, and two daughters. Yeah, I think there's 6 of them. So they go around doing shows and whatnot. And I reached out to them via email, and they were also like, hey, sorry, we're really busy right now. Maybe in the future. Thanks for reaching out. And that was, it took them a while to get back to me, but so that fell out. 2 different people I talked to, and unfortunately it just didn't end up happening. If you've been keeping up with the different episodes, you saw that I did a bonus episode with my cousin, and he's just a new songwriter. He wants to do songwriting, so we talked about that and just what it's like being a songwriter, as well as just a little bit of his background. And then I also interviewed my friend Edie Lauer, who is in a traveling band with Olivet Nazarene University. But yeah, I haven't had actual songwriters, musicians who release music on the show yet, but I do have plans for a couple different people I'm going to be reaching out to. One of those people I've already kind of hinted at doing it with, at least to him, not here on the show. And he may even just be listening to the show right now. I'm not sure. Maybe he is. Or at least he may have heard this episode. So, you might know who you are. And I'm hopefully going to be reaching out to you pretty soon about that. So, there is some musicians I have in the hopeful near future that I'd like to get on the show that will be great conversations, I'm sure. Okay, I need to pick things up. We're already at almost 15 minutes, and I don't have very many questions down. On to question 4. Have you done an episode on genres of music yet? Also, Ben. No, I have not. that would be something interesting. I've never actually thought about covering that. And this is why I want you guys to submit ideas and talk about ideas with me. Because then I'm like, oh, you want to hear stuff about this or that. So yeah, I've not done an episode on different genres of music. I've somewhat toyed with it, but not thought about it very much. That could make a really interesting YouTube exclusive video or something. But I'll talk more about that pretty soon because there's another question relating to that. Question 5, I believe. Final one from Ben. What is your 6th favorite song? I messaged him after that and I'm like, this is going to be so stinking hard to answer. And he was like, okay, don't worry about it too much. I'm just really asking, what is a song that's just not your number one song? And I honestly don't even know what my number one song is, but I will tell you a couple different ones. So a lot of these are by independent artists. I think most of them will be. And I'm really just kind of rattling these off. I don't have them written down or anything. One I would definitely say is Same Stars by Xander Salos. It's just so good. It is an amazing song. I love it. It's great to like kind of sit in a dark bedroom and listen to. It's basically kind of like you're overwhelmed and like life is crazy, but the tag of it is the one who holds the same stars, hold your life in his hands. That's not the melody. I kind of like didn't decide if I was going to sing that or not. One from Sam Bowman, I would say. Oh, he's got so many different good songs. Gravity and Lancelot, 2 of his newest songs. I really enjoy those. Wisteria is also a really good song by him. There are so many to choose from. And yeah, so many songs to choose from. And then I'll throw one more into the mix. Jordan Blaine, J. Steph. I think a song by him that I would say I really, really enjoy is probably either In the Midst, Ride of My Life, or Do It Afraid, Cold Take version. The reimagining, remix, whatever you want to consider it, of that song is so good. I love it, if you couldn't tell. So those are some of the songs I really enjoy. Yeah, not top songs. Well, Do It Afraid is actually pretty close to number 1. I don't know. Those are some of my favorite songs. And I will link all of those underneath today's episode so you can go listen to those. There are going to be a lot of things under this episode to check out. Question 6. This question is from Chen. Both Ben and Chen were also co-hosts of my other show, the Creative Podcast that we worked on. And side note, a new episode of the Creative Podcast is out for the first time in months right now. So if you want to check that out, guess what? Linked under today's episode. So you can go listen to that or the whole show. You can go see that under today's episode. Chen's question is, do you plan on recording for YouTube like sitting on a couch and having a camera in front of you? Yes, I really want to make some actual YouTube videos, not just uploading the show to YouTube. I have some different ideas. The genres of music, like Ben said earlier, or Ben's question I talked about earlier, would be an amazing one, I think, to cover on YouTube because it would make for like a good 10-minute video, I think, maybe a little bit longer. So yes, I would love to do that. I would also like to make this show actual video, but I don't know if I feel like I'm ready to do actual video of the full show because I feel like I'm going to have to be much more like even slightly scripted for the YouTube videos where I can be somewhat free-flowing with the just normal podcast standing out here in my treehouse. And it takes a lot more work to make a whole video show every other week. But yes, I would like to do some YouTube videos in the future and hopefully not too long. I feel like I need to get a slightly better camera so the video isn't just crappy from my computer webcam. But in the near future, there's going to be some YouTube exclusive content. So yes, and yes. Question 7. Okay, so wood plus book equal cow. Do you agree? What even is this supposed to mean? I am so confused. Chen, are you okay? Blink twice if you need help. Yeah, I really don't know what this is supposed to mean. And he's like, yeah, I wanted to put something fun to submit. So consider me confused. If any of you listening have the answer to this or agree with this, you can comment below or let me know on Instagram. Awesome stuff. Did you just start writing songs? Have you been writing songs for a long time? Are you releasing your own music? I want to know and I want to hear it. The whole point of this show is to build community and share what we're working on with each other. So if you're making music, even if it's just you in your bedroom and you haven't shared it with anybody, I'd love if you would record a voice memo or something of it so I can hear it. If you have your music released somewhere or even just recorded slightly better than, just a voice memo, also would love to hear it. You can send me links, you can email these files to me, and I would love to hear what you guys are working on. Again, the show is about community and getting connected and sharing what we've made with one another. You can email it to me at songsmithshow@gmail.com. You can find that below today's episode. On Instagram, you can DM it to me at Songsmithshow. I've been saying this a lot, but they say repetition really gets into someone's head. I want to know what you guys want me to cover on this show. Whether it's a specific aspect of songwriting, a specific genre, or just, different questions you have about songwriting. I want to cover the things you have for me. So if you have things you want to hear about, hear me talk about, cover, answer questions, let me know with different ways like email, Instagram, or under this episode and most episodes, if you're on Spotify, there's a Q&A feature that you can submit those things. And then I can read them and be like, oh, this would make for a pretty good episode. And even if not, I'll do my best to answer it either below there or sending it back to you on Instagram and whatever. Make sure to let me know so that your question can be answered in the next episode of Songsmith. On to question 8. So question 8, as well as a couple of the following ones, and the final question of his, which I moved to the very end of the episode, are from a musician who follows the show, one of the musicians who follows the show. His artist name is No Matter, and I'll make sure to link his Spotify below this episode, because he's got some interesting music, and I think you should really check it out. And again, community. Let's build that community and get connected with each other's music. But his actual name is Seth. And the first question he has for me is, who are your greatest songwriting inspirations, and what do you admire most about them? So I've talked about them several times on the show, and I've, talked about them even in this episode already. And those 3 people that I can be like, these are the ones that I can point to as my inspirations, are Sam Bowman, Jordan Blaine, and Xander Salos. There's similar reasons for each of them, but there's also some unique reasons for each of them. For Sam Bowman, the reason I would say is because he always has a great way of taking a biblical topic or principle and applying it to everyday life. From, just the different things like stress and anxiety and the different things the Bible says about that, from, how God is our rest. He's our refuge. We don't have to fear about everything. I ain't worried about a thing because I know my King is sovereign over everything. I ain't worried about a thing. Those are the words from I Ain't Worried About a Thing by Sam Bowman. And he just does a great job at making it fun, and it doesn't necessarily feel just like a Christian song. It feels like a fun song, but when you go dig deeper and listen to the words of that song, it's amazing. It's layered. It's layered in such a beautiful way. For Jordan Blaine, the reason I really like his music is because out of all the independent musicians I've listened to, consistently, he's the one that I relate with his music the most, and the emotional side of it. He's got things from like Bound to Break, where he's basically questioning, is this life, all these things I'm trying to do, am I just building something that is bound to break, to fall and tumble over? And that's just one example of many different songs he's created that are just relatable questions about life, especially from his album 2022. For Xander, who's the first person I ever started listening to in kind of that independent artist realm, I really like him mainly for the reason that he does something different with almost every song. Everything is new. You never really can know exactly what the next song is going to be like. And it just keeps you on your toes and it keeps things fresh. He is just willing to try tons of different stuff. And recently he's not been releasing much, partly because as of the day I'm recording this, it's 90 days until he's getting married. But also because obviously school and stuff, college specifically, causes you to have less time to be able to do things. But yeah, he is the one who really, like I said earlier, introduced me into the independent artist realm and has made me want to be a music songwriter myself and possibly a producer, at least of my own music. Question 9, anybody? So question 9, as well as several of the following ones, are actually from a friend of mine named Olivia. And she submitted quite a few. There's a lot of questions here, but a few of them I can quote-unquote speed run through. They're not too complicated, and then a couple of them I'll spend more time on. But yeah, question 9 from Olivia is, What made you decide you wanted to write independent versus another style? And then I combined another question. And do you see yourself releasing an album? First part, independent music. So the reason I chose indie music is there's a couple different reasons. First off, there's indie music, like indie artist, where you're just separate from a label. You're doing it all on your own, funding. You're working, basically doing everything for it yourself or you and like one other person. So there's that side of it. And then indie music, independent music, is a very broad. In fact, independent music is the absence of any sort of categorization. Like I kind of said with Xander, it is where you just kind of can do whatever you want. You have no strings attached. You don't have to please anybody. I mean, preferably you're going to make stuff that the people listening will like, but you don't have to do anything anybody says. It's all up to you. So a lot of the indie style can be anything from like, EDM, punk, rock, country. Really, it's anything you want to do. So the reason I want to do independent music is that I don't have to conform to any set of standards. I can do a worship song, and then I can do a electronic song, and I could do a country song. I can do whatever I want with my music. And kind of like what I was saying that I like about Xander, from song to song, it'll change every time. That's why I want to do independent music. And yes, I would love to release an album. I would love to release anything, honestly, right now. But I feel like I still need to write more to fill out an entire album or even an EP. And then either A, raise the funds to produce those songs that I've written, or B, learn how to produce myself. Both are things I would like to do because there's some people that I'm like, hey, it'd be awesome if you produce this song. And then I would also like to have the skill and expertise to be able to do production myself. So either way, yes, I would love to release an album. I might start with doing more of a small album or a large EP, which an EP is basically just kind of half the size of an album. I think it's considered anything less than a full album, which I don't remember what that number is actually for songs. And then I'd take those songs from the album and release them single by single every week or every other week, probably every other week. So yeah, that is kind of what I'd love to do. Question 10. Who is your role model in life? This one's also from Olivia. So there are plenty of people I could say as a role model in my life. I could say my parents because I want to be a good parent when I grow up, and I feel like they are good parents to have as role models. I could say Jesus, kind of the Sunday school answer. But honestly, Jesus should and is in a lot of ways my role model. If I were to choose one person to point to in my friends, family kind of thing, I would definitely say my cousin Connor. I've always looked up to him. He's always been the cousin that everybody's like, hey, it's Connor. I feel like a lot of cousin groups have that one cousin that everybody wants to be around. Not just because like they're the cool cousin, but they're the oldest, or there's something about them. You just enjoy being around that person. Connor has been that cousin for my mom's side of the family in a lot of ways, at least for the boys. The girls are like, whatever. It's my sister and Audrey, his sister. And then just in the last couple of years, Lily and his other sister, Maddie. So, there's not a ton of girls. So basically all the boys are like, yes, it's Connor. He's the cool cousin. He's the oldest. And then Ethan has also been kind of that cousin too. But I feel like Connor more specifically has been the cousin that everybody tries to go to. With that being said, I feel like Connor and I have a really good relationship. And out of anybody else, he's the person I talk to the most and have the strongest relationship with. I've always looked up to him and his just kind of joy and enthusiasm for life and everything he does. He loves being creative and having fun. He writes stories. He made a one-episode podcast where he talked about one of those stories called the Story of Thinkers podcast. It was a school project, but it was still really fun. His college life is something I admire. Having a really good close friend group that he can hang out, have great conversation with, play games, do all the stuff. That's the kind of life and person I want to be. And like I said, he's very creative. I'm very creative. We both click with each other really well. And I share more with Connor than probably any other person I know. He's been one of my closest friends, and I couldn't choose any other person for a bigger role model in my life. Moving on to question 11. What person has taught you the greatest lesson? What was that lesson? Olivia. So I would say my parents probably are the ones I would say who have taught me the best and greatest lesson in my life. And that has been to it's kind of two lessons. A, work hard for what you want. For a long time, I've been, doing different things. Years ago, I started my own puppet business. It didn't last extremely long. I was pretty young and it was a short phase I went through, but I loved making puppets for a short time. And they were honestly pretty good for my age and just, being at home, no professional experience or whatever. A few of them I still have because they were ones for myself, and then I sold a couple on Etsy. I forget how many. Not too many, but a few. So for a while, there's been good work ethic instilled into me by both my parents because they're both kind of entrepreneurs. My mom started her own photography business, and my dad works as a realtor. So there's a lot of stuff that he does on his own. He works through a realty broker, but he still does a lot of stuff on his own and has that very similar entrepreneur type of job. So that is definitely passed on to me. I did puppets, and then I did drone photography for my mom for a while. I started the creative podcast with my friends, and then we started this show, Songsmith, and I also help her with social media and YouTube. So I've always been doing stuff, and I attribute that fully to my parents. The other lesson has been to have good self-control and good judgment, acting well. I know that there's a lot of people in my generation who are so consumed with devices or people at their school. Like there's just this one boy or one girl that he or she's obsessed with. And it's just like, it just feels immature the way they're always acting, obsessing over one thing, staring at their screens. And I feel like I definitely have those problems from time to time, but I feel like my parents have helped guide me and show me, okay, this is why you shouldn't be doing these things, why you shouldn't always be on your phone. You need to be connected with people. Life is so much more fulfilling. You feel dead, honestly, if you're on a screen all day. And you don't want to suck your life away by just staring at your phone or computer. And in terms of like not obsessing over one person is not going to be the end of the world. It's not your life that's in that person. You should be concerned about you and building real relationships. And if something more like a dating or even marriage eventually comes of it, great. But you should have your eyes focused first on making yourself to be the person you want to be in the best version of you. Those are two lessons that I've learned from them that are invaluable. There is no price I can put on them. They're so important in life. And I know that a lot of people, either their parents haven't taught them that or they've just kind of tuned it out. And it can be to some people's detriment. Another from Olivia. Question 12. How do you balance work, school, songwriting, and family time? That is a good question, and it is not one that I always do well. So, yes, there is a lot of stuff I do. I try to write songs, I work on the show, I spend time with my family, I spend time with my friends, I try to see my cousins often, I work on a board game, I have school. There are a lot of things going on in my life, and that causes there to be a lot of time management that has to happen. That doesn't always happen. So, yes, I do a lot of things. Like I said, work on the show and everything. That takes up a lot of my free time. Songsmith is one of those things that I've been like, okay, I'm going to be committing a lot of my time to this because it's a project I'm very passionate about and passionate over more than other things. So I'm going to set other things to the side and really work on this. Not set aside family time and stuff. That is important. If I get too consumed in my work and spend too much time on it and don't spend enough time with my family, then I'm not living what I preach. If I'm like, you should be writing songs about God and writing about how to live in a God-honoring way, and then if I'm writing songs about that, and then it's taking all my time and I don't spend time with people, then I'm a hypocrite, honestly. So there's that. But back to the question of how do I do it? It's basically you have to line up your priorities. What is most important to you? What should be most important to you? Is that work? Is that family? Is that school? So you have to line those things up, line up what is most important to you, as well as what needs to get done, and let everything else fall into place. Sometimes it's hard to stick with that. I can spend way too much time working on this show just because I'm like, oh, I have to do this. Oh, I have to do that. Sometimes it does need to get done if I'm going to stay on schedule. Sometimes it's because I've been poorly managing my time. Other times it really doesn't have to be done. I just feel the need to do it. And also church, spending time with God. That is very important too. So figure out what is at the top of that pyramid. what is the thing that's most important to you, and slowly fill in those slots. And not to say that it won't ever be difficult, but a lot of things will fall into place if you can figure out what your priorities are and stick to them. Get done what you need to get done, like school or work if you're older. Spend appropriate amount of times with your family, and then you have that free time to work on other projects, like for me, Songsmith. So, fun, not fun. I just got done recording and literally finished recording all of the questions. And then I don't know what just happened, but half the questions got deleted, and I can't recover them, which is really frustrating. But we're going to re-answer those questions and cover them again. Question 13. This one's also from Olivia. The question is, are you planning on going to college? Yes, I want to go to college. I want to go to college and study either music or ministry or both, because those are things I'm both very passionate about. I am not sure which, if there's going to be one that's main or if I study both kind of equally. And then I also would like to have some sort of backup plan because both of those things aren't very consistent or high paying jobs. So yes, I would love to go to college. That is my plan. It's a great stepping stone from life at home where you're under your parents' roof to having a decent amount of responsibility, but not everything is on you. To then after college, moving out to be on your own, and then everything you do is kind of your responsibility, how you live, all the bills, everything. It's all the responsibility is on you now. So it's a great stepping stone. It's a great way to make some good friends if you go to a good college. Two of the colleges I've looked at are Grace College, which is where my cousin goes, like I said earlier, and as well as Olivet Nazarene University. It's where my dad used to work before he moved to Indiana, and both my parents went to that college, and I've been there several times, and I really enjoy the campus. Those two are high contenders. I like both them, but I've definitely not done tons of college looking yet. Maybe some other college might come up that I enjoy or think I'd rather go to, but those are definitely high contenders. Question 14! Little dramatic, maybe, but hey, it's question 14. This one is also from Olivia, and it is, what are your big dreams for the future? I'm just going to rattle these off real quick and give a little bit of an explanation for each because there's a lot of them. First off, I would love to release music because, well, I like music. I like making music, and I want to share that music. I want to learn how to produce music so I can produce my own music. Pretty cool stuff. I would love if Songsmith became a much more steady, full-time type of thing. I'd love if it could grow a community of songwriters like the goal of the show is. And maybe even start another podcast, honestly. Maybe with a co-host on that one. It would be awesome to write a book and devotional. A book in terms of like making it a fantasy or some sort of nonfiction, maybe set in the real world, maybe not. Devotional, I think that'd be so cool. There's a lot of things I'd love to see in a devotional, so making that myself would be a fun project. And of course, I would love to start a coffee shop where they have live music as well as, coffee shop, because I just love coffee. Coffee is a really, really good drink, and it'd be cool to start one and have like a special atmosphere that I could have in my own unique shop with a lot of different things I'd love to do with that. So those are kind of my big dreams for the future. There's definitely other things I could talk about, but those are some of the big ones. Some a little bit harder to attain, other ones not so much. I could definitely make it happen. It'll just take work for each of them to happen, really. Moving on to question 15. This is the final one from Olivia, and I think this is a really good and interesting question that I wasn't really expecting. The question is there anything your audience can be praying/uplifting you in? In short, I ask that you guys be praying that this show can reach more people and that we can continue to build that community of songwriters and help encourage each other through the show. On top of that, I ask that maybe someone clicked on this show and they didn't realize it's a Christian songwriting podcast because it is just called Songsmith. Maybe they clicked on an episode and they started listening and it's like, oh, they heard something that they've not really heard about Christianity, or they don't know that much. They've just kind of been turned off from it. And they hear something on here that actually clicks for the first time. That this show can be a ministry as well as just education. It can be all of that in one. I also ask that you pray that the music I be writing and getting ready can impact people for Christ. That the message is good accurate, pure, and that it can lead people to Christ, as well as being entertaining, engaging, and challenging. Finally, I ask that you pray for me about the different things that I have going on in life, from working on the show to schoolwork, family time, all the things, and the stress that can sometimes cause. I'm always praying for those things for myself, and knowing that other people are praying about them too would be extremely helpful. Great question, and I really appreciate it. Now it is time for the final question. Was that cheesy? Maybe it was a little cheesy, but yeah. Like I said earlier, No Matter, aka Seth, submitted in a few questions. He actually submitted in 2. The one I covered earlier, and this one that I was like, I am going to add this to the end of the episode. I thought, based on the question's content and this being a songwriting podcast, that it would make a really good close to the episode. So that's why it's here. Like I said, I lost the content of several of the questions I answered, like 4 or so. So I already answered this question, but I think I might answer it a little bit differently this time. Not different in terms of what I'm saying, but just how I say it. But to move past my rambling, here's the question. Do you think there are any topics that Christian songwriters should never talk about? Short answer, no, I don't. I think all cards on the table. But let's put a little bitty asterisk where you have to go and read the fine print and see what I mean by that. So no topic I think is off the table for Christian songwriters. You can write about how you feel. You can write about God. You can write about things God has done. You can write about stories. You can write about your friend named Joe and his toy truck. But also, there's things that are dicier, like abortion, LGBTQ, more political things. And not political in terms of they are political people or whatever, but that there is a lot of politics involved in it because a lot of politicians campaign based on their opinions based on these things, etc., etc. And people can get pretty heated about them. That's why I have to expound upon what I'm saying when I say no, nothing is off the table. Nothing's off the table, but you have to make sure you do it right if you do something such as LGBTQ, abortion, or whatever. Obviously, I've not talked about those things much on this show just because, well, that's not what the show's about. It's never had an opportunity. So I've never really talked about it. But yeah, talking about those in songs, those are things I have definitely considered writing about in different ways. Not all completely figured out, but I've just kind of like toyed with the idea, as I do with a lot of things. And anyway, back to the question though, is that how do you do that? How do you write about these things that are so dicey and, actually make a good song out of it? First off, you have to make sure that what you're doing isn't just made to be a statement. You don't want to just add to the political noise and yelling of everybody. Everybody's screaming their opinions, saying this is right, this is wrong, that's right, this is wrong. And just throwing one more thing into the ring is not going to change or help anything. One really good example of this is Matthew West collaborated with some movie studio, I don't remember what it was, and wrote a song called Unplanned. It is about the sanctity of life and that no life was unplanned, and every life had a purpose from the start. If I am remembering correctly, the movie was about abortion. I believe that's right. Forgive me if I'm wrong. But also the verse within the song that it kind of takes inspiration from is, I forget what psalm it is, and I should have pulled it up before I came out and wrote it down or something. But basically, it goes like this. At least a section of it does. You knit me together in my mother's womb. In the depths of the earth, your eyes saw my unformed body. All the days of life were written for me before one of them came to be. And it goes on to talk more about that. And I believe David wrote that psalm. I think I slightly misquoted the end. But again, it's all about the sanctity of life and that God had a purpose for us from the beginning. There was no accident. It doesn't matter how you came here. It doesn't matter whatever. No matter how you're here, it wasn't by accident. God's hand was in it, even if you don't understand how. That is a song that did that kind of topic of abortion correctly. It's not just noise. It is genuine scripture-backed music that talks about the problem in light of Christian views and why we view that the way we do and what God views on that, honestly. I think 2 guiding lights when making music on topics that are much more dicey, heated, whatever you want to call it, is first off, is your music still being somewhat entertaining in a way? Does it sound good? Or is it just made to be a statement? Second of all, is it God honoring? Are you just screaming out your opinion, or are you talking about it in a God honoring way? Because if you're just yelling about your opinions, you're helping no one. Not every song has to be the most upbeat, encouraging, happy song. I've talked about that several times on the show. But make sure that you're not just making noise. You're making something that at least challenges someone's thought. They listen to the music and then they listen to the words and they're like, okay, there's something to this. There's something to think about here. And of course, as always, be educated on these things. If you talk about them incorrectly, not incorrectly based on like someone else's views, but inaccuracies in your information, then people can get mad at you, and you don't want that. So be educated, just like with any other topic like scripture, or if you're telling a story or whatnot, you want to tell it correctly or do those things justice, as crazy or big as that sounds. You want to do it right. Be educated, try and make it entertaining in one way or another, and of course, make it God honoring. Before I came out here, I hadn't really thought about what the Songsmith challenge will be. It slipped my mind, quite honestly, so I didn't have anything written down. But I did come up with an idea that I thought was a really interesting one. So here it is. Write a song where the chorus is asking a question, the verses can expound upon it, whatever, and the bridge has somewhat of an answer to it. Specifically, what I mean by this is choose a person, whether it's this fictional person, or have a good, type of person at the very least, or maybe you're asking God a question, you're asking yourself a question, asking a friend a question. Some sort of person, or some specific person that you're asking a question to, and then, ask that question in the chorus. And then use the bridge after basically the entirety of the song, the verses have been expanding on it. Use the bridge to have maybe a glimmer of hope, a hint at the answer, or maybe the answer itself. It's up to you about how you actually execute it, but that's kind of my challenge for you. I thought this was a good one to tie into the question and answer type of thing that I did with this episode. So ironically enough, today is Palm Sunday. That's not ironic, but what our pastor talked about today is. Recently, he's been doing a series about how Jesus is shown in the Bible as our prophet, priest, and king, and what that looks like in the Bible and what that should mean to us. Today was the last day of that series, and it's about how Jesus is king. Now, related to that message is the fact that in it, he talked about how there was this manuscript in a British college. I forget what college it is, but he got to go see it. Maybe it wasn't a college. Maybe it was a museum. One of the two. But it's the oldest known piece of the New Testament, oldest known manuscript of the New Testament, and it is of John's Gospel, chapter 18. Specifically, it is not a very big piece. It's honestly a very small fragment. But in it is the conversation between Pilate and Jesus before he is to be condemned to execution on the cross. And one of the phrases on that sliver is as follows. John chapter 18, verses 36 through 38. Jesus said, "My kingdom is not of this world. If it were, my servants would fight to prevent my arrest by the Jewish leaders. But now my kingdom is from another place." "You are a king then," said Pilate. Jesus answered, "You say that I am a king. In fact, the reason I was born and came into the world is to testify to the truth. Everyone on the side of truth listens to me." "What is truth?" retorted Pilate. With this, he went out again to the Jews gathered and said, "I find no basis for a charge against him." Pilate asks, "What is truth?" And let's be honest, aren't we all asking that? Don't we all want to know what truth is? The amazing thing is that Jesus tells us. The Bible tells us. Jesus says, "I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me." He is the truth, our truth. What I'm getting at is that I want to write a song where the question is, what is truth? Where is truth to ground me into anything? Isn't everything just subjective anymore? You have your truth, I have my truth. That's what everybody says now. Truth seems to be non-existent. There is no foundational truth or thing that we can all agree on, it seems like, anymore. That is going to be my question. And the answer is that Christ is our truth. He is our consistent foundation, the one who will never lead us astray. That is what I'm going to write about. I'm excited to see the kind of stuff you guys come up with. As always, you can submit what you've made to me via email, Instagram, or whatever. All my contact info is beneath this episode in the show notes or description based on if you're on YouTube or some podcast or streaming platform. Just like that, we have finished 10 episodes of Songsmith. Everybody, that's amazing. Round of applause, please. I can't believe we're this far into the show. That's actually crazy. Thank you guys for listening so much. And thank you for all the support you guys have shown me up until this point. And hopefully into the next, next episodes. We are right now at 94 listens, I believe, to the show as of the time of this recording. We might be at 100 by the time this comes out. But let's set that milestone. We are almost at 100. We're at 100. Let's get to 1,000. How fast do you guys think we can do it? Let's spread the show. Let's spread this out and let everybody know about it. Thank you again for the support up until this point, and I cannot wait for future episodes and where this show is going. Also, if you haven't already seen, there is new cover artwork for the show that I decided to put out for having 10 episodes. I wanted to put my face and me on the podcast because I feel like it's a little more relatable and people might be more inclined to click on it if they see it, so there's that side of things. But I thought it was a nice update to let you guys actually see me on the show. I really didn't want to have to get rid of the guitar in the logo, but I couldn't find a good way to incorporate it in. If any of you have ideas, you can let me know because I'd love to try and put it back in there. I'll obviously continue using it with marketing and using the logo, but the guitar just isn't on the main cover art anymore. If you guys have thoughts on the logo, let me know. I'd love to hear your feedback on the new cover art. One other thing I would like to say is that my other old show, The Creative Podcast, actually has a new episode for the first time in months right now. It's a solo episode with just me, kind of talking about what happened to the show and where it's headed in the future. If you want to check that out, it'll be linked below. I'll link the link tree so that you can check it out on any platform, any episode you would like. As always, if you want to submit ideas for future episodes, questions you have, whatever, you can use my voice memos feature on my Spotify for Podcasters page. Email it to me, Instagram, whatever. All of those ways are in my link tree down below this episode. It's crazy that we have hit 10 episodes. I still can't get over it. It's amazing. And plus we have some bonus content and the trailer. So thank you for listening every time a new episode comes out. It's work, but it's a lot of fun making this show. I'll see you guys all in 2 weeks from now. And as always, keep writing.